All right, so I had this pooling water in my backyard all along the side of the house, and you guys are not going to believe what the actual problem was. So watch until the end. Didn't cost me anything to fix. So I'm going to go through some steps that you need to check with your sprinkler system. Then I'm going to tell you the story about what it actually was. You're not going to believe it. And so first thing you're going to go check, find your sprinkler box, and yep, mine is completely filled with water. So I had an issue last year with this. I'm going to go ahead and scoop the water out so I can turn the sprinkler system off at the main to just check. There's a couple things you're going to check before you start digging. So go ahead and turn that water off. You really only have to turn off one. I turned off both, but you just have them being perpendicular to the line. And I found these gross things. These aren't anything. They just grow in damp areas. So just, put some gloves on and get rid of those. But I go into your backyard where you have these other valve boxes. And when I took this off, this was also filled with water too. So we're going to go ahead and scoop that water out of here. And we're just going to wait and see if that dries up after we've shut off the whole system at the main line. All right, so I've had this thing shut off and it hasn't rained in like a week and there's still a whole bunch of water in here. So I got a shop vac. So now this is way easier than scooping it out with a cup. And I'm just checking around here first to see if there's any leaks, if I can see, anything dripping that would cause that to fill up. So I'm just looking all around. I don't see anything. So I'm going in my backyard and there's still a little bit of water in this one too. So I'm going to go ahead and, suck the rest of that water out. All right, so what you're going to do now is turn your water back on and just check and see if anything's leaking. It doesn't look like anything's leaking in this front main box. So next we're going to go to the backyard and look at that backyard valve and see if anything's going on there with that. So I go back here and there's no water coming out. There's no leaking. I had an issue with this last year. There was an obvious leak coming from this. So when the water is on, you could actually see the water filling up slowly, and my backyard was just a swamp. So we don't have that problem here. So, all right, so right here, I'm just feeling to see if, any parts are getting, wet at all right here, and there's nothing getting wet here. So what you're going to do next is go ahead and run each zone and make sure that water pressure is good. We're all good here. If you do have low pressure, you 100% have a leak somewhere. Okay, so at this point, I was just out of ideas. So I texted my neighbor in neighborhood. He works on sprinkler systems. He actually helped me blow out my sprinkler system last year, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that yourselves to winterize it for winter. But he came over because I was stumped. I was like, I cannot figure this thing out. So he checked everything that I checked, and he's actually the one that told me about the low pressure in your sprinkler, when they're spraying, that's a huge indication that you have a leak somewhere. And since I didn't have that, he goes, it's probably your neighbors. So I go and I knock on the door, I ring the doorbell, finally get them out, and I'm talking to him. He goes back there and looks and says it is just like a swamp back there. So he did everything that I showed you guys at the beginning to check, and almost every sprinkler head had like no pressure coming out of it at all. So I felt horrible that I was the one that like knocked on her door early on a Sunday morning to tell her all this stuff that was going on, because I know how expensive that would be to fix. So I just told her, I said, just, if you're not using your sprinkler system, which clearly you're not, just turn off the main water at the sprinkler system. So we open up the box and this is what we saw. Okay, so at first look, this looks like the shut-off valves have just corroded off. And so we were talking about replacing that, and it's like $675. And I was still bummed about that. But then, we open up this other box and check it out. Bingo, we've got a shut-off valve. So she just shut that off and problem is solved. So she was able to just turn off the water from that main sprinkler head box and problem solved. Now, Charlie charged me $45 to come over, and my neighbor picked up the tab. So it didn't cost me a thing. And now look what my lawn looks like now. You can see here that it's gone about halfway down since Sunday. That wet part was almost all the way up to my house, just coming from my neighbor's yard, which is just crazy. Never would have thought that in a million years. So it's drying up here and we're good to go.
I hope this helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips and tools from Stacy DIY.